Good afternoon, and welcome to our continuing series, Interviews with Disciples and Devotees. Today again, we are honored to have Kittu Reddy with us. Kittu, welcome. Welcome. Namaste. And we are in the third chapter of the ideal of human unity. So, can give a very brief summary of chapter 3 and go to the end.
So in the third chapter, it is titled as The Group and the Individual. All individuals always live in groups. You can't live all by yourself alone. We need each other, and more than need, we like to be in a company. And whenever there is a group and a collectivity, there has to be an authority which partially controls or totally controls two extremes, right? The collectivity. So we are all, in a certain sense, under the authority, and that authority is known in politics as the state. The political term is the state. So the state is, the government of India is the state, the government of Pondicherry is the state, the ashram trustees are the state in the ashram, etc., etc. So here, in this paragraph, he is speaking of that there are two types of states actually. One is where the state completely controls the individual. Ancient Sparta and Germany at a certain period of its history. And the other one is where the state abdicates complete control and gives a fair amount of freedom to the individual. A fair and reasonable amount. That's a word which is very plastic. What is reasonable? Very difficult to define. But they certainly give certain amount of freedom.
What is the best example of that?
I think all the democratic countries in the world today, including the United States, England, India, the state is certainly there. It can encroach on the individual, but at the same time they have given a reasonable amount of freedom.
And in history?
And?
In history.
History, ancient Greece.
Ancient Greece?
Yes. And they are all small city-states, republican city-states in Rome, in the Middle Ages. But ancient India was also of that type. But our concept of democracy is very different from the modern concept of democracy. The modern concept of democracy is based that every individual must be allowed to govern his life by his reason. And evidently it is absolutely impossible. So the only time we use our reason is when there is election. Once the government is elected, well, we have no role to play almost, right? Of course, with this freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and digitalization, Twitter and Facebook, they are under pressure. There is no doubt. We can express our opinions. These expressions might mold the government's attitude. Might mold, might not mold. It all depends. So, in the true sense, you will see much later in this book, in the previous book also, there is nothing called democracy in this world. In a big chunk of your life, somebody else decides for you. It is true about the ashram, it is true about Pondicherry, it is true about Bengal, it is true about India. and every other group, right? So he speaks of these two types of groups. And then he says that they justify it, the state taking control over the individual, by two reasons. That is where we are now going to start. Now, one thing you must get very clear in your mind, because Aurobindo refers to that very often. There is a state, which is the government, and there is a state idea. The state idea means that the government takes full control of your life. The state means the authority which might take full control or might not take full control. So whenever he uses the word state idea, that would be as Russia was under Stalin, where the complete control of the individual life is in the hands of the government. Correct? Now, what is the justification? Because today in the modern age, whatever you do, you have to explain by reason. Ultimately, you can't say, I do because I am powerful or strong, unless you are divine and everybody accepts you as divine. Otherwise, you have to explain why you are taking a certain decision. So they are explaining it, they support themselves on two motives. One is external and one is efficiency. External is like this. It might be, if not an absolute truth, a very large truth, that man by nature is selfish, self-centered. And if you give him a lot of freedom, he will use all that freedom for his own benefit, for his own good, even at the cost of others. Therefore, there has to be an authority that will keep you under check. So, that is the first justification of the state. The second justification is that efficiency is increased. Otherwise, the same thing being done by 10 people repeats, right? So, this is, as I said last time, the conflict between, in the political terms, public sector and private sector. So, I gave you this example last time. The railways in India, the biggest railways in the whole world, is under the public sector. Huge. And that the government has to take. Because the driving force of the private sector is profit. Certainly they would not like to put trains in small remote villages. But they also need a train, no? Otherwise they have to travel 40 kilometers sometimes. The government, if it is wise, will try to see that everybody is connected in some way or the other, or as close as possible. Which means that they have to spend the money from their coffers, which is taxed. If you leave it to the private sector, they will say, oh, we had no benefits here, so why should we? Correct or not? But today, under the new government, the railways is under the public sector, but the catering has been given partly to the private sector.
Yes, yes.
That means you can order your food in advance and request them to give the food, so many chapatis, this, that, at this station, and they will come and give it to you. And they will certainly see that they gave it to you in good shape, good state, because they are making profits, and if you complain, they will immediately correct it, because no businessman will allow this thing to continue. So these are the two basic reasons. And Aurobindo says, and this is a unique Aurobindonian phenomenon, that these two ideas are a mixture of truth and falsehood. See, you will hardly ever find that he says that this idea is completely false. There is a truth in this idea, there is a truth in that idea. The whole question is how to balance these two apparently opposite truths, right? So after having said this, then he says, and when he wrote this book, that was the tendency, that the state idea was dominating. And what is the reason? When the state, the government controls, efficiency is improved enormously because it's under one single control. And the typical example of this is the army. All armies in the world, and very particularly the Indian Army. They don't consult everybody. The Commander-in-Chief, the Lieutenant Generals, the Major Generals is absolutely in line. And once the decision is taken, you better follow it. You have no option whatsoever. But in government, that is not there. There is discussion, there is debate, there is argument, etc., etc. So, in order to increase efficiency, it is often felt that centralized control is very desirable. Centralized control. Centralized control means state idea. The government decides, everybody follows. Trump decides, the whole of America follows. Modi decides, everybody else follows. Macron decides, France follows. Or we give you some space for liberty. So in this chapter, that is the fourth chapter which we are starting today, he is dealing with what he calls the inadequacy of the state idea. When the state takes over complete control, there are serious shortcomings, serious limitations. So, I read out sometimes, yes. Right? What after all is this state idea? The idea of the organized community to which the individual has to be immolated. Immolated means sacrificed. So, the state idea means that every individual, have to be sacrificed to the state. This state is supposed to represent us, because especially today we have elected them. So it represents us. The ruling party is a representative of most of the individuals. That is a theory. Practically you will find that probably this time 53% voted, 47 didn't vote. Out of that 53, Narendra Modi might have got 29%. So 29% of 100% comes to 16% or something like that. You get it? So is it really representative or not? In a sense, no. But can you give me a better solution? So since this is the best that is available, or one of the best that is available, right? And in America, Trump did not get the majority of votes, but he got the majority of the
Electoral
college, and he has been elected. So is that democracy? So anyway, these are all discussions that are will take place in due course. So he says that they impose their aim today partly by force of character, the strength that they have got and the power, and partly by verbal hypnotism. Now this is what you have to understand. This media is nothing else but hypnotism. You see the media, you see the TV, you see the newspapers, you get an impression. that impression crystallizes, and then you have opinions. 99% of the time, all your opinions are rubbish. Because you don't know really what is happening. Two reasons. One is, it is very difficult if something has happened somewhere. You ask 10 persons who are standing there to relate the incident. Will you get one point of view or 10? They are describing, no opinions. Even description will be different. So there itself there is. And then if I have already got a prejudice, I say, this fellow is a rogue. So then I will twist it and make it look worse. Correct or not? And very few human beings can claim they are absolutely impartial and objective. Right? Therefore, two things. Mother categorically stated, newspapers are falsehood. And there was a room in the ashram just beside the notice board on the right side. That was called the newspaper room. Mother called it the falsehood room. But how do you know then what is happening in the world? Because Aurobindo used to read newspapers. A Hindu would be read out to him, male because of the cartoons that were there. So mother doesn't say don't read newspapers. Just get a broad idea of what is happening. But a commentary on what is happening is generally very prejudiced.
I want to ask you, in the US now, we have lobbyists lobbying for the pharmaceutical companies who influence the Food and Drug Administration in the government.
See, the moment you use the word lobby, you are not objective. You have got a goal. You want to get that thing done at any cost. Right?
Exactly.
And for that you are ready to modify facts, suppress facts, change facts.
Yeah.
It is not honest.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Right.
So lobbying means already distortion. Correct or not? You want to know the truth exactly as it is. Very, very difficult. And that is why, beside the falsehood, the second thing is mother is never have or almost never have an opinion. It could be right, it could be wrong. And she has used this as part of the mental training. And Aurobindo writes, the capital period of my intellectual development, the words are not exact but almost exact, was when I could see the truth in one idea and then I would take up the opposite idea and see that that also was true. And in one stroke, the prestige of the intellect was gone.
I remember his quote, only those things are true, the opposite of which are also true in their own time and application.
Absolutely. So you see, I think yesterday or today, somebody was discussing with me about reservation. Reservation should be removed completely. Only merit. So I let them argue. I said, one group said, reservation is indispensable. Because for the last 1,000 years we have treated men like animals. Dalits. We have to give them reservation. They said, yes, but you said in 25 years you'll be able to do it. Well, we have not been able to do it in 25 years. So I will come back to the main thing. As long as we have this arrogance and this attitude of looking down on others, either because of religion or caste or sex, it is inevitable that nature will create some method by which this injustice is removed. And one of those methods are reservation. Now, if you give opportunity to everybody, as you will see in the end of the chapter, what is the role of the state? Very clear. He explains the business of the state. I'll explain that in due course. So, this governing class emerges partly by character because you see, Narendra Modi is a wonderful speaker. Even today, few days back, there is a group called Pew, P-E-W,
Oh, yes.
which made a kind of random,
Survey.
statistics.
Yeah.
83% are behind him.
Yeah.
Now the opposition says it is all because of talk, hollow fellow. There is nothing in him. He is doing nothing, only gas. But gas or no gas, he is likely to be elected again, right? Whether it is good for the country or bad for the country is a personal opinion. I can say it is good for the country. There are others who will argue. I don't argue with them. I say, look, you have every right to have your opinion. I have every right to have my opinion. So mother says categorically, don't have opinions. Watch. Keep watching. Sometimes you have to have opinion when there is a decision that is affecting your life. In politics, when the election time comes, you have to have your opinion. That also they are removing now. Not removing, they are giving you a door. None of the above, nota. So you see nobody. Now if 75% of the population says none of the above, then it means there is nobody fit to rule the country. But usually it is a very small percentage. Usually people are partly by force of character, partly by their actions, and very much by the hypnotism of the media. We are hypnotized. And since we are hypnotized, don't form opinions. Just observe, watch. You can have a private opinion and you wait for the time to come. When you have to vote, you form your opinion. In your life, there are times when you have to take decisions. Then again, you have to have an enlightened opinion, and according to that, you follow your own thing. So he says that it is by this kind of hypnotism, and the state claims that it represents the higher mind and the soul of the community, of the group. So the government of India represents, according to them, the soul of India. Mamata Banerjee represents the soul of Bengal. The trustees represent the soul of the ashram, and so on and so forth. So his last sentence is, the ruling class or ruling body is supposed to be representing the best mind of the nation or its noblest aims or its highest instincts. Next sentence. Nothing of the kind can be asserted about the modern politicians in any part of the world. He does not represent the soul of a people or its aspirations. What he does usually represent is all the average pettiness, selfishness, egoism, self-deception that is about him, and he represents them very well. Great issues often come to him for decision, but he does not deal with them greatly. High words and noble ideas are on his lips, but they become rapidly the claptrap of a party. The claptrap is nowadays called slogans, right? So November 8th was a very important day because last year he demonetized. So today, on November 8th, there was a movement by the Congress party against demonetization, and this party was for demonetization. So huge slogans and all this, right? Very few people think. So anyway, and This disease is very widespread. And why is it widespread? Because of the hypnotized acquiescence of all, including the intellectual classes. And as mother has made a remark, I am not able to quote, and even Aurobindo has said somewhere that the intellectuals are sometimes the farthest from the truth. Because they see one side. The underdeveloped villager who doesn't have that education, he goes by some other yardstick, a feeling might be, and very often they are much more right.
I have that quote from Mother. The simplest Indian villager is closer in his heart to the divine than any Western intellectual.
And I would say today, any Indian liberal intellectual, because they are the biggest enemies of the spiritual movement. I don't want to give names because it's being recorded, but so it is because of this sham and the acquiescence of the intellectual classes that the ordinary newspaper reader and TV viewer is completely misled. So I see the TV for 10 minutes in a day. Just put it on. No, if it is a cricket match, I see the match. But if it is news, 10 minutes. I just know what is happening. Opinion, commentary, discussion, I don't listen to anything. And there is something on NDTV called the Big Fight. So for demonetization, against demonetization, and all the 5 people arguing this way, that way. I spoke to somebody and told him, you tell NDTV, don't say big fight, you say big reconciliation. Because there is a truth in demonetization, there is a limitation in demonetization. And this is exactly what the mother says. Every time you criticize something, give a suggestion to do it better. So I remember that in 1962, when the Chinese attacked India, somebody wrote a letter to the mother, one of my colleagues, same age, in which he criticized Jawaharlal Nehru. And mother said, do you think that you would have done a better work if you are in that position? If you cannot give a better solution, shut up. I am using the words. I mean, keep quiet, don't. See, that is why I never give opinions. You see that, I would rather say, as I said before also, and this is a very important sentence, motives can be absolute, but action is always relative. I might have the best of intentions, but the moment I put it down on implementation, there will be for and against. Some will benefit, some will be hurt. There is no action which will benefit everybody. It will benefit some, it will hurt some. But I might be doing it with the best of intention. Right? So motives can be absolute. Not that they are always absolute, but you can have absolute goodwill, absolute, right? But however much goodwill you have, when you put it into practice, it is relative. There are plus points and negative points. See, that is why do not rush into judgments and opinions. And you see, if you are honest, this leads you straight to spirituality. Because having no judgments, having no opinions except where you are directly concerned is already a step towards spirituality. So if you are honestly rational, you are bound to arrive at that need for that higher truth. Mother and Sri Aurobindo can say absolutely that this is the thing to do. That is why I've given you this example before also. The Cripp proposal, Sri Aurobindo accepted it outright. Not only he accepted it, he wrote letters. He sent Doraswamy
Yes.
to meet Gandhi. And there was a discussion. Gandhi, of course, did not even discuss. Why is he concerned about, he has retired, let him go to Bengal. But Nehru and others, there was a discussion. And ultimately Gandhi's will prevailed because he was against violence. And supporting the Cripp proposal means supporting one form of violence. The ally is against somebody else. But whatever it is, this intellectual discussion, you can never be sure that this is the right thing or this is the right thing. And that is why a man of action, he can take all the opinions, but finally what does he do? He does what he thinks is best. He cannot take everybody's opinion. Because if you had asked people about demonetization, you would have got all the contrary opinions. And secondly, he could never have asked, because it had to be done in secrecy. Because if I let you know in advance that I am going to demonetize, then you will already save your money. So on November 8th, blank, he came. Right? He took a risk. That risk is being taken advantage of by the opposition parties. They're going and telling the people. Because medium traders and small traders, they suffered a little bit. Don't vote. Vote for Sonia. Now Rajiv, Rahul, right? So this is the whole game. It is only one who is up there. Or if you are sure that your motive is absolutely clear. If you ask me my opinion, I believe that Narendra Modi's motive was good. He did not benefit anything out of himself. And that I can say with some confidence because he has no money, hardly any bank account, and he has no lady friends to whom he has to cater. That gives him a tremendous advantage. So probably he is the best that is available. But probably. If I can get somebody better, I will be very happy. That only someone who is up there can say with confidence.
Yeah.
All right. So he says that it is this great organized sham that is deciding everything for us. Right. There is no alternative as yet to that. But now, the next paragraph, I just introduce it. Even if the government was made up of divine persons, still it will not be what it is meant to be. Because whatever you are, whatever quality, to get it implemented, you need a system. A system means a mechanism. A mechanism means a machinery that you are creating, right? I want to buy railway tickets. You can't just walk in and get it. You have to go through a process. I want to live in a certain guest house. You have to write a letter in advance. Try to book your room, isn't it? So there is a system. And no collective life can be done without a system. That system can be twisted. So that machinery can be warped. I'll give you an example practically. There was a time, long time back, when students, when young men who were aspiring to serve in the government had to pass an examination, which is done even today. Examination is a machinery. That examination was loaded with about 40% questions only on Gandhi. Now, suppose I had not read Gandhi but read the political system and understood everything else, I would have failed. Secondly, if I gave my honest opinion about Gandhi, there was a chance that you would fail. So you see, even examinations can be distorted. An objective report about somebody else. Now I'll tell you something personal where I was involved directly. We had examinations in the ashram school from 1958 to 1967. 3 exams when the whole school, secondary, would sit for 2 weeks. We would have exam. Monday 8 to 11 English, Tuesday 8 to 11 French, and so on. Morning, afternoon, 2 weeks. Those papers were sent to the teachers, they would correct it, they would give marks, and then they would decide the fate of. It was better than outside because outside it all depended on one exam. Here it depended on 3 exams. But 1 exam or 3 exams, human psychology is the same. So one day I saw a child, I was walking, he was facing this side, I was behind him. He had got a book here, he was copying. I just tapped him on his shoulder. He got scared. I didn't tell him a word. I wrote to mother. What should I do? Should I put policemen here to invigilate? What is the root cause of this? To that she answered straight away. The root cause is that they want to impress without taking the trouble of learning. They want to score good marks by any method. The exact words are not there. I've got a letter in my own hand, right? With me, it's in mother's handwriting. So I said, now what to do? So once I wrote, few other teachers also began to write. And ultimately we came to the conclusion, no exams. We don't have exams. Your value depends on you. And I can assure you that if you have value in anything, whether it is in cricket or in studies or in anything else, nobody can stop you for too long. Because unfortunately, even today, in many parts of the world, that piece of paper called a degree is very important. But I tell you, degree is like toilet paper, no value at all. What your degree gives you and what you are, huge difference. Toilet paper is too strong, but it is a scrap of paper. Okay. And if you have got value, you will stand up. Just 2 minutes more.
And then we can take a question or two.
Yeah.
Okay.
2 minutes more. The next one is that even if you have got very good persons at the top, you have to create a machinery. Whatever problems there are in the ashram today, where we had at the top, not today, even when they were there, when mother and Shravan there were problems. Let us have no illusions, because we had to work through a machinery. And that machinery is not always exactly what we want. So that is why he says, even if you have the best, since collective life, in individual life, I write to mother, mother writes to me, I can change. But in collective life, there is a system. And that makes it more difficult. With this, I'll stop today. Next time, I'll take this up in great detail. Because there is no area of collective life where you can work without a machinery. See, in Andhra Bhavan, people apply to stay there. Some people come directly, and then we decide that they will, if there is a room, we'll give. I have seen, I generally do nothing, I just sit there. I have seen somebody coming, and the lady in charge says there is no room available. I'm sorry, I can't give you, there is no room available. There are 6 rooms available. I asked her why you didn't give. She said, I felt very clearly that this person is not of the type on whom you can rely. I said, you might be completely wrong, no? She said, yes. But then I depend very much more on mine. And we found within a day that she was absolutely right. He used to get drunk, he used to smoke. So now we have made a rule that if you come there, what have you come for? Come for marriage? Not interested. You have come for ashram? You have come for Aurobindo? Okay, we'll consider. So we have to create a system. So today I got a question on the internet. Why is it that in some hotels connected to the ashram, couples, unmarried couples are not allowed to live together? So they want that unmarried couples will live in room number 301, and so we have made it very clear that unmarried couple, not here, you go elsewhere. But in any other hotel, nobody will stop you. Correct? Because we are afraid that they will have sex. And the 4 rules of the ashram are there: no smoking, no drinking, no sex, no drugs. Right or wrong, I don't know. But we are quite firm about it. Right or wrong?
Right.
Right.
Right. Questions? Any questions?
What do you think? Our decision is right?
Regarding?
No marriage, no sex, no drugs, no drinking, no smoking.
Right.
So there are persons who come there, say, sir, we smoke, but we promised you that we will not smoke here. So I said, don't smoke within 100 meters of our place. So they go further and smoke. One person was not found smoking, but the smell was there. So he denied. Luckily, we have got a camera. So we saw him lighting the cigarette outside. In the room, we don't have the camera. So we caught him on that. So we told him we are not coming here anymore.
But we have the reverse also. We've had sincere sadhaks who drank.
When the mother was there.
When the mother was there, they drank.
Because mother had the authority to make the exception.
Yes, exactly.
But a normal human being, once he has made a rule, it will be very difficult for him to go against that rule. So I don't want to give names, but mother certainly allowed. But those persons, mother said, go far and drink. Don't drink within the, 5 kilometers outside Pondicherry. And then she said, drop it. And he dropped it. Within 1 year, little by little, he dropped it.
Remember, she took the cigar out of Sri Aurobindo's.
What?
She took the cigar out of Sri Aurobindo's mouth.
Sri Aurobindo is beyond all rules. He's not like us. Anyway, now questions. You have something. You read something to me.
About the Asia.
Come closer because I can't hear.
Yeah, it says in a board in the ashram. Can read it. There's some passages from Aurobindo or the Mother, and there it says, when Asia once more becomes the theater of the world's chief events, it is a sure sign that a great spiritual revolution, perhaps a great age of spirituality, is preparing for humanity. And
I'll explain this.
yeah,
See, first of all, let us be very clear that spirituality is not the monopoly of India. Only India is spiritual is all nonsense. But the one country in the world where spirituality is still alive to a certain extent. And today, before coming to the class, I was reading the agenda, volume 1, November 26th, 1958. Mother repeats that India is the one country in the world where spirituality is there. It is losing it to a certain extent. It can never be lost. But because of this rationalism and all that, it is losing it to a certain extent. Now I will go a little further and say that all the continents in the world, Asia is the one continent that has nurtured and preserved spirituality to a far greater extent than the others. To a far greater extent. But not that there was no spirituality. Secondly, in India, the ancient India, the rishis reached almost the heights of spirituality. They did not reach the supermind, but they spoke about the supermind. They knew that it was there. Now that which the rishis have attained has been planted in the very soil of India. So Mother writes in that same thing in Ananda, that the moment you step into the soil of India, you can feel that spirituality. You can feel that spirituality. If you are a rationalist intellectual, you might feel nothing. But the possibility is there, which is there nowhere else in the world. That is because we have preserved it in all kinds of forms. Rituals, traditions, customs, living spirituality, real sadhaks, realized men. So, why I am using these words, rituals, customs, traditions? Don't kick them out. Raise them. There are very many rituals which are very mechanical. Try to make them non-mechanical. There are people here, I am talking from personal experience, who go to Samadhi every day. Every day, same time. So somebody asked him, really you feel every day? He says, no. So why do you go? It's a ritual. He said, yes, I agree it's a ritual. But if I stop going, then even that little possibility sometimes goes. So I try to keep it. And I go very regularly. I will say 30% of the time I feel something very strong. The remaining of the time I still do it as a habit. And that is necessary. Meditation. You practice meditation at the same time every day. There are days when you don't want to meditate. There are days when you are very disturbed, all kinds of things are happening. But many people keep that habit. The result is that gradually the 30% becomes 50%, then it becomes 70%, till it becomes a part of your being. So rituals have their place, but only their place. They are not the main thing. The mistake is in making them the main thing. So don't be too sharp and critical in general about rituals. You can tell X that you are doing it only ritually. That is a different matter. That's your judgment. But don't be against rituals. And I can tell you that today, millions and millions of Indians go to the temple, do puja. Right? All my workers, staff at home in Nanda Bhavan, they do their puja very regularly. I never discourage them. Because they feel that there is something behind. They feel very vaguely. And as they themselves say, that when we are in trouble, we do it more. That is human. We are all like that. So Asia has preserved that, right? And when I say Asia, it means India, it means China, mainly these two big countries, but it is there in Mongolia and all that, right? Pavitra spent a lot of time in Mongolia because that is where his spiritual aspiration started. And not modern China, but the old China. So Asia is the one continent which has preserved this, right? And when Asia rises, inevitably this also will come along with it. And from that point of view, Mother has said categorically that the future of the world depends on India. If India brings back its spirituality genuinely, it will have a huge impact on the rest of the world. But as she says, as at present, it is not true. It is not happening, but it can happen. Now that is the thing which you have to judge yourself. Is the country moving in that direction or moving in the opposite direction? That is your judgment. Okay?
You were talking about you were talking about not having an opinion.
What? Not having.
Yeah. So among the youth, like the individuality is in the forefront, and that individuality is like centered around the ego. So often, like not having an opinion is often seen as being ignorant or not aware.
Correct.
So
So you have to have an opinion to impress. Correct or not? But if you are honest with yourself, you will argue on both sides. But you can say that I believe, and I believe strongly that this is the right opinion. But I believe it is not that it is the truth. I believe, I am telling you now, that Narendra Modi is the best person available at the moment. I don't want you to accept what I am saying, but I am telling you what I believe.